Welcome everyone to another episode of Julia's Trucking Cafe Trucking News Hour. How's everybody doing? Did you have a good week? Did you have a good weekend? Well, I'm sorry for the delay and not being able to do a show last night. I have lots and lots of news to get to. And the news is going to be covering, someone mentioned, the news happened at such and such time. It wasn't current. It isn't today. I also work 50 hours a week. So a lot of times I'm running late on the news. This episode is going to be from like September 9th until about the 18th or so. And so then last week's news I'll be covering on the next show. So sit back, grab your popcorn, grab a cold one, sit back and enjoy the show. Now there's going to be something a little bit different this evening where I'm going to go ahead and try to have you all have a little bit of a video on one of the stories. And we'll see if I get popped from YouTube with sharing a video. It's only a minute or two long, and let's see what happens. So I'm experimenting now. So like I said, sit back and let's get started with the show. Lots of news to talk about. And in our first story, Iowa City is to start full enforcement of a noise camera program to combat the use of jake brakes. The city of Avoca, if I'm pronouncing that right, Iowa, announced plans to move ahead with full implementation of a noise camera program, which specifically targets semi-trucks and other vehicles using engine compressions/jake brakes. On September 8th, Avoca City officials said that following the success of a spring pilot project, full implementation and enforcement operations of the noise camera program would begin in October of this year. The noise camera program is concentrated along Highway 59, and it uses, quote, calibrated microphones and high-resolution cameras that detect when noise exceeds certain ordinance limits. Decibels, I believe, capturing brief audio and video of the vehicle. The video is then reviewed by staffers, and violators are issued citations by U.S. mail. The city will install photo-enforced signage to let drivers know that the program is in effect. Quote, I have a fan going, so my hair is blowing all over the place. Sorry. Jake brakes have been a problem in our community for a long time. It's exciting to finally have a way to do something about it, said the mayor. During the pilot program that took place in spring, the noise camera system documented 183 violations committed by 83 vehicles. Quote, about 44% of these violations were attributable to repeat behavior, with nearly 1/3 linked to just 5 individuals. So just 5 trucks were making all that racket. The city says that the program does not change existing engine brake ordinance, but that it provides additional ways to enforce that ordinance. Quality of life for our residents is city top priority. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I decided to step back and shut the fan off so you don't have to sit there and watch me do this all night. Anyway, back to the story. Our pilot demonstrated that targeting repeat violators can make a big difference. With this technology, we more effectively address the few drivers responsible for most of the disruption, improving the daily life for the entire community. I can say for myself, I live on a corner of 2 busy highways on 4 corners, and I have log trucks going by all times of the day and night. You may hear them while I'm recording the show. They're running empty, and bah, at the stop sign. If you would, because I live on a small hill, so as they're coming around the curve and having to come up the hill, if you would just slow your asses down ahead of time, the road going north past my place is really curvy anyways, and the curves are usually 35 miles an hour. There's even some of them that are 25 going up into Tennessee, because I live like 2 miles south of the Tennessee line, and going up into Counts, Tennessee at the paper mill. All you gotta do is slow down. You don't have to run your Jake brake when you're running empty. It's stupid. I can understand with a load of logs, but you still gotta slow down. So many times drivers, and don't get me ranting, so many times drivers have lost a load of chips because they're going so damn fast. It's just stupid. And they don't give a flip that somebody's trying to sleep, that she might work nights, and you have to sleep during the day? You know? Seriously? But anyway, I digress. And our next story, a dump truck driver loses his license and is fired at the scene of the crash after a DUI, and he rolls the truck over. Excuse me. A dump truck driver faces serious repercussions after a recent rollover crash, according to British Columbia Highway Patrol. Around 2:30 in the afternoon, British Highway Patrol responded to a reported single vehicle crash near, Colin, you're going to have to help me with this, Deroche, Dorsch, British Columbia. The 44-year-old dump truck driver from Abbotsford was not seriously injured in the rollover crash. After officers arrived and administered a breath test, the reading on the screening device said fail. While police were investigating the crash scene, the dump truck driver's supervisor arrived and fired him on the spot. The Highway Patrol issued the following to the dump truck driver and his employer: 90-day immediate roadside not driving, the seizure of his license, a ticket for driving without due care and attention, a ticket for open liquor in the vehicle, and a $230 fine, and a 30-day impound of the dump truck. Boy, his boss is kind of ticked off, you think? The majority of professional truck drivers never deal with British Columbia Highway Patrol. They're too busy working safely and following the rules, said the big wheel of the Highway Patrol. But with any big rig, its stakes are too high to be unsafe. We have no tolerance for drivers who are driving drunk. Here in the States, you lose your license for a year if you're caught with a DUI. And in this, hold on a second. Let me fix something. I wonder why that's doing what it's doing. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Now you're watching me cheat on how I fix things. There we go. Now y'all can see it. You see the circle right here? I don't know if you could see my hang on just a second. Can you see my, yeah, you can't see my cursor. In the circle right there, this driver's dash cam, this person is walking through the fuel island in this next story. And a driver's dash cam captures this footage of a fatal incident involving a man on foot in a Mack truck. This happened on back just after Labor Day, around 6:41 in the afternoon at Sapp Brothers in Dodge County, Nebraska. I'm trying to think where that Sapp Brothers would be. In the video, a 70-year-old Skylar Norman can be seen walking across the fuel island towards the truck stop. When he walks in front of a Mack truck, the Mack truck's lights could then be seen coming on, and the truck moves forward, hitting Mr. Norman. Norman was soon transported to a nearby hospital where he later died of his injuries. He must have hit him pretty hard. Mike Kubler, a commercial truck driving instructor at nearby community college, says that the parking lot accidents between trucks are common, but says he's never heard or seen one involving a pedestrian in his 30 years of trucking. I've never seen one per se, but if you don't, pedestrians need to watch when they're walking in front of somebody. Always look to see if there's somebody through the windshield, somebody's in the seat, because you're looking down, you're filling out, or you're pushing in the brakes or whatever. May not have your foot on the brake. When I was in the fuel islands, I had to watch, because too many times drivers would come right in front of the grill of your truck, and I'm short. I can almost duck underneath. If I bent down just a little bit, the top of the hood of the truck, you wouldn't be able to see me either. So I made sure I stepped out several feet in front of the truck so they could see me that I was walking across. I'm sure he was walking across from his truck, to go get his fuel receipt or use the restroom or what have you. And unfortunately, this happened. No information of the truck driver that operated the Mack truck that hit this Mr. Norman was released at the time. You always be on the lookout, like I mentioned. Don't automatically take it for granted that somebody is going to see you when you're walking in front of trucks. Always, look up and see if there's somebody in the seat. If they're going to pull out, what are they going to do? A lot of times I would wave them across, that, hey, you're good, I see you, this kind of thing. So it's just, it's too bad that this person got hit. And our condolences are with Mr. Norman's family. Now, this is a good example of when you're not watching what the heck you're doing and going around tight curves, and apparently this wasn't even a truck route. So a couple of things is it not only is he not supposed to be there, not following the Google Maps, but not watching where the heck your trailer is either. So a truck driver narrowly avoids a plunge off a narrow winding turn, not even intended for semi-trucks. This guy narrowly avoided a serious fall off a winding turn in Seattle. The accident happened back the 10th in downtown Seattle on Spring Street, southbound Interstate 5 ramp. According to the Seattle News, the semi-truck attempted to make the winding turn on the ramp and failed, sending the trailer wheels off the barrier wall before the semi-truck came to a stop. Yeah, he wouldn't... Yeah, now you need a tow truck to pick up the trailer to get him off the bridge. Because the back axles, it's hard to see that in this photo, but the back axles of the trailer are hanging on the guardrail of the bridge. The ramp had to be shut down in order to clear the semi-truck that was left blocking the roadway. This photo was taken by a trooper, clearly shows a sign banning semi-trucks. So, no hard right turn for semis, and the guy did it anyways, because he wasn't paying attention what the heck he was doing. So thank you for subscribing, Mr. Jenkins. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, you're so busted. And next up, this is the one that we're going to watch a little bit of a video here in a second. Let me just tell you. Bystanders rescue a deputy pinned by his ankles, dangling upside down over the bridge after a semi-truck slams into his patrol car. So let's go ahead and view this. There is no sound. So here you see the officer. He is stuck. There's his patrol car, and his ankles, he's jammed in against the bridge and stuck between his patrol car and the bridge by his ankles. So if you want to, let's watch that just again real quickly. So you see him dangling there. There's his patrol car, and his ankles are squished between the patrol car and the bridge. And his gentleman brings a ladder, tries to push him up, and while they have him strapped, and then they're flagging a tow truck to pull the wrecker off of him. And up next, another Florida. Are we dealing with another incident like that happened in Florida? This happens a lot. Florida wasn't just the first time. Dashcam captures a semi-truck U-turn eerily similar to the fatal one in Florida. A motorist dash cam captured one semi-truck's U-turn on a crossover that seems eerily similar to the recent fatal crash in Florida. This was filmed on US 23 in Circleville, Ohio. In the video, a semi-truck attempts a U-turn at a crossover on a highway, blocking the lanes of travel as he waits to safely enter the other side. A pickup truck just behind the semi then has to slam on the brakes and drive into the crossover himself in order to avoid a potentially horrific situation. People, whoever is watching this podcast, you don't do what this guy did. Now we have sirens in the background. Do not do what this guy has done. I don't care if you missed your turn. I don't care if you have to use a restroom and there's a rest area on the other side. You go down to the next exit, and I don't care if it's 20 miles down the road. You go down to the next exit, get off the exit, then cross over, and then come back. That is the safe way to do that. This U-turn is for official cops, fire department, ambulances only. It is not built for semis. Oh my goodness. So it just, seriously, can you be, there again, I tell everybody all the time, you don't need common sense to have a CDL. Okay? So, I think we need to start requiring, besides English proficiency, we need to start testing people for common sense in these kind of scenarios. What would they do before they could get a CDL? Oy. So a driver in this story experiencing medical emergency 5 miles an hour police chase that ended in a battering ram is now suing Houston deputies. Truck driver involved in a slow-moving police chase through Houston that ended in the use of a battering ram is now suing the deputies for using excessive force on him during a medical emergency. Truck driver Trinidad Cutshall led police on an hour-long 5 mile an hour police pursuit along I-10 in the East Freeway in Houston back in December of 2023, 2 years ago. Why the hell didn't you stop? You were doing 5 miles an hour. You could have stopped pulled over to the shoulder of the road. You didn't have to go along for an hour. Sheriff's deputies eventually called in a SWAT team, and a battering ram was used to remove Cutshall from the truck. Cutshall was then bitten by a canine officer while police allegedly beat him, sprayed him with tear gas, and used rubber bullets. Cutshall and his attorney claimed that he was suffering from a serious medical emergency at the time of the police chase and encounter. Cutshall was perceived to have some level of impairment by officers at the time of his arrest and had revved the engine at them. Cutshall was charged with evading arrest and detention in a motor vehicle. Since then, prosecutors dismissed the evading charge against him less than a month before his trial. Cutshall's attorney says that the prosecutors likely dismissed the charges because they were presented with evidence that Cutshall was suffering from sepsis at the time of the incident. He had a medical condition that caused him to completely black out for an hour? Gibbons explained, the attorney, adding that Cutshall had no idea he was even being pursued by the police. Lawsuit brought forward by Cutshall alleges brutality by law enforcement and names the 13 sheriff's deputies. The suit calls their actions evil, wicked, and vile. 9 of the defendants filed a motion to dismiss, but a judge ruled that the case could move forward early this month. Qualified immunity does not apply when there's a German shepherd shredding one arm while 2 other men are punching my client in the back of the skull repeatedly with their bare fists. There are absolutely no weapons in the vehicle that could have harmed anybody. There was no threat to anybody. I think that anybody, he uses anybody a lot. There was no threat. I think that anybody would have trouble exiting a vehicle if they're unconscious and about to die from a medical emergency. Sepsis. Google it, because I'm really not sure what actually it is. Isn't it an infection of some sort? So anybody in the comments can let me know. So yeah, he's going to go on and on and on about this. But yeah, they look at the truck. It kind of did use a lot of force to try to get in the truck and drag him out. And with the adrenaline flowing and this kind of thing, I'm not siding with the officers at all. That just, yeah, no. So anyway, let's move on. And now, there again, there going to be a lot of accidents in this section, week and a half of stories that I'm talking about. From the 9th to about the 18th or so. This motorist was hospitalized with broken legs after crashing into a concrete pillar, and I circled where the car is. Top of the circle is where the one of those concrete beams for a bridge is being moved. And how do you run into that? How do you run into that? I'll tell you how. Not paying attention. That's how. A motorist is hospitalized with broken legs after crashing into a concrete pillar, Lower Buckeye Road in Phoenix, Arizona. According to the family of the motorist in an SUV, crashed into the side of the concrete pillar, which is being hauled through the intersection by a semi. The force of the collision lodged the SUV underneath the pillar. Well, it's not really a steel, but it's a concrete version. The motorist suffered broken legs and was transported to a nearby hospital. Of course, the accident was under investigation at the time of the writing of the article. And a truck driver is charged with attempted murder in connection to a road rage incident in this next story. And this incident happened in Pennsylvania around 5 o'clock at night in Hagerstown, Maryland. According, I don't know why they say Pennsylvania, but so that's a misprint. According to the local news, a road rage confrontation between a pickup truck driver and a semi began on eastbound 70 near Interstate 81 and then continued onto 81 before the two drivers eventually exited and headed west. Once on the boulevard, the semi truck driver fired shots at the pickup truck driver. 3 bullets struck the pickup truck, but then he wasn't hurt. Police eventually found the semi and the truck driver and took him into custody. He was then identified as 33-year-old Willie Lawrence Wooten Jr., and a gun was then discovered on the floorboard of the semi. Wooten is facing charges of 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree assault, 2 counts of second-degree assault. He's also facing charges of reckless endangerment from a motor vehicle, use of a firearm in a violent crime, carrying a loaded gun, and carrying a handgun. Wooten is currently being held without bond. So yeah, for those of you who are wondering if you can conceal carry, I wouldn't in the state of Maryland if I were you. Now, check this out. Nebraska government and Werner Truck Lines deny rumors of a deal with Kenya to bring in foreign drivers. Now, I got something to say about this, of course. Aren't we going through all of this English proficiency testing, and later on in the show we'll talk about that in greater detail? And now Werner and the governor of Nebraska are taking trips over to Kenya. The government of Nebraska and Werner Enterprises are denying rumors, I don't believe a word out of either one of their mouths, are intended to participate in a deal with Kenya to bring in foreign drivers. Secretary of State Bob Evans returned to Nebraska on Wednesday, the 10th, after a trip to Kenya that ended in the signing of a memorandum of understanding. According to the local news, the trip sparked rumors that the state of Nebraska intended to bring in foreign truck drivers from Kenya to alleviate the alleged driver shortage, which, if you're in the trucking industry, we all know that there isn't a driver shortage. Evans' officer states that the trip was focused primarily on the promotion of Nebraska's corn, ethanol, and dried distillers' grains and irrigation technologies. Quote, Kenya is one of the strongest economies in East Africa and is a trade getaway into the region, he said in a press release. Bullshit. The trade mission continued to grow and solidify Nebraska's trade relationship with Kenya. That may very well be, but there could also be in fine print in this memorandum that, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to kind of have drivers come over. The memorandum between Kenya and the state of Nebraska is not legally binding, but does outline intentions for the cooperation between the two. One of these intentions include, it says here, legal temporary migration for vocational education and training, air quotes, in Nebraska. And I say air quotes when I'm doing air quotes on the video, and my nose itches, excuse me, because I also use this audio for my audio podcast. So for the people that are listening to the audio, the agreement also encourages workforce upskilling, training, and technical and vocational training between the two states. They're not a state. Isn't Kenya a country of Africa, or is it a state? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. The MOU is non-binding, the memorandum, and was not coordinated in advance by the Secretary of State with either the governor or any other state agency, and does not represent the policy of the government of the state of Nebraska, the press release reads. To be clear, why does everybody say that? The Secretary of State has no authority over driver licensure and is not part of the consultative process for policy development in that area. Last year, a group of Kenya delegates traveled to Nebraska and toured trucking facilities, including Werner. Imagine that. The aim of that trip was to connect trucking companies with, to fill open driving positions with laborers from Kenya. At that time, Evan estimated that approximately 500 people from Kenya would move to Nebraska to join the workforce, but no formal agreement was made at that time. With this recent trip, rumors connecting the 2025 Kenya trip back to last year's promises have been circling the internet. Werner has since addressed those rumors by posting the following statement to Facebook. Quote, Werner Enterprises wishes to clarify that we are not involved in any agreements or discussions regarding the recruitment of Kenya truck drivers to the United States. Any claims suggesting otherwise are just false. Werner is grateful for Governor Pillen's leadership to grow Nebraska, pursue foreign trade opportunities, and connect Nebraskans to great American jobs, said the CEO of Werner. There again, I don't believe a damn word out of their mouths, because we have Armenians, we have Russians, we have Somalians, we have Jamaicans, we have Spanish Latinos, we have, from all over the place, all over the globe in the industry now. What's stopping them coming in from Kenya? But you still got to know English. Gosh, my nose. Excuse me. It's water. I wish it was vodka, but it's water. But anyway, I digress. Carrying on. Side of a ripped-off semi in crash involving a rig that crossed the center line. This is what happens when you're not paying attention. A side of a semi was ripped off and a load of logs was spilled in a crash involving two semis and a passenger vehicle. This happened back September 12th. The accident happened in Ontario, Canada, actually on the 10th. According to the police up there, one semi-truck crossed the center line on Highway 63, colliding with an oncoming semi. The force of the collision ripped off the side of one semi and spilled a load of logs. A passenger car was also struck in this accident. Only one person sustained minor injuries in the crash and was taken to the hospital. 60-year-old truck driver was charged with careless driving for the accident. And there again, I'm not finished with the accidents, folks. 3 were killed in this crash on I-64 here in the States in Kentucky, involving 4 semi-trucks and 2 cars. The Kentucky State Police are investigating a multi-vehicle crash in Woodford County that claimed 3 lives that happened September 12th. Troopers say that 4 tractor-trailers and 2 passenger vehicles were involved in a crash in the westbound lanes of I-64 near mile marker 61. 2 of the 4 truck drivers involved in the crash were pronounced dead at the scene. 1 passenger vehicle driver also passed away at the scene. The deceased have been identified as Casey Whitlock, age 50, Matthew Jackson, age 43, and John McBroom, age 39. 2 other passenger vehicle occupants and 1 other commercial vehicle driver were injured in the crash and transported for medical treatment. So there has been an update, and let me read you from the state of Kentucky State Police website. The Kentucky State Police at Post 12 in Frankfort continue their investigation. This was on the wrote on the 18th of September into the Woodford County collision that left 3 individuals deceased and 3 injured on September 12th. The preliminary investigation shows that a commercial vehicle operated by Matthew Jackson, 43, of Hamilton, Ohio, struck a white Nissan passenger vehicle operated by Shane Downey, 55 of Frankfort, Kentucky. Mr. Downey was transported by a third party to the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. Jackson's semi then continued and struck another passenger vehicle operated by Casey Whitlock, 50, of Georgetown, Kentucky. Ms. Whitlock succumbed to her injuries at the scene, and her passenger, Angela Curtis of Cynthia, Kentucky, was transported to the hospital and airlifted to the University of Kentucky Hospital for further treatment. The same semi of Mr. Jackson's continued and struck another semi operated by John McBroom, 39, of Crittenden, Kentucky, causing McBroom's semi to strike another semi operated by John Pryor, the third, 46, of Tennessee. Pryor's semi vehicle then struck another vehicle operated by Jason Robertson, 21, of Louisville. Jackson and McBroom both succumbed to their injuries and were pronounced deceased at the scene. So, Jackson hit a Nissan passenger vehicle, so let's get all this straight, operated by this Mr. Downey. Then, so he was transported to the hospital. Then he hit Whitlock. Then she passed away. Her passenger was taken to the hospital. Then he hit McBroom, killed him. Then pushed McBroom's vehicle into another semi operated by Pryor. Then Pryor pushed Pryor's semi into another semi operated by Jason Robertson. Apparently he's okay. So, and then Jackson and McBroom and succumbed to their injuries. So this Matthew Jackson that did all this damage passed away. McBroom, that was let's see. So when Downey hit McBroom's vehicle, then pushed McBroom's vehicle into Pryor's semi-truck, then apparently, he rear-ended Pryor's truck, and then apparently McBroom passed away. So Mr. Jackson, that was 43, that started all this, because it gets confusing with so many vehicles involved. He did pass away, the guy that started all this. And our condolences to all of the families and everybody involved in any of this. And a video, now I did not, because I have to re-record videos, so I didn't have a chance to record this one. Video shows a moment that a Phoenix light rail train and a semi-truck got tangled up and it collided in a fiery crash in Phoenix. I didn't have a chance to record, like I said, to re-record this video. You can, I'm sure, look it up. A Phoenix light rail train and a semi-truck collided in a fiery crash caught on video on a Sunday evening. Accident happened on the 14th around 7:15 p.m. in Phoenix. According to the local news, a semi-truck and a Phoenix light rail train collided, causing the train to push the truck along the tracks. The accident sparked a fire, which caused the train and the semi-truck to become engulfed in flames. The truck driver sustained non-life-threatening injuries and was taken to a nearby hospital. Approximately 20 passengers were escorted off the train. Nobody on the train was hurt. As crews arrived, they did a great job of evacuating that train and getting the semi-truck driver out of there, said the fire captain. He was transported to the hospital in stable condition. The employees of the rail company said there was one employee on the light rail and there were about 20 passengers. So thank goodness that nobody was hurt in that bad wreck. That I'm sure, with him being drugged, the the semi-truck being dragged down the tracks is what caused the fire. Now, this guy is arrested in a human smuggling bust at San Antonio truck stop. Truck driver was arrested during a human smuggling bust at Love's in San Antonio. The arrest was made on the 12th of September. I know where that Love's is. And members of the gang unit, canine unit, and human exploitation and intelligence unit were stationed at the truck stop when they noticed a suspected human smuggling operation. Officers witnessed an apparent transfer of individuals from a semi-truck into two SUVs. Officers then conducted traffic stops on both of the SUVs and discovered a total of 4 undocumented migrants originating from San Luis Potosi, Mexico, Matamoros, I can't pronounce the other one, and Guatemala. One of the migrants was transported to a hospital for a leg injury following the smuggling bust. The migrants were taken to the county adult detention center. Truck driver, 64-year-old Armand Andrea Talbert, was also taken into custody without incident. He's facing 4 counts of smuggling of persons and 1 count of engaging in organized criminal activity. There you go. You're just not going to get away with it if you think you're going to make extra money. And a truck driver is sentenced to prison after dumping a jug of piss. Don't say urine, a piss, to hide the smell of drugs in his cab. Ugh. A truck driver was recently sentenced to federal prison after a failed attempt to hide cocaine with piss. Pablo Garcia Ortez was sentenced to serve 36 months, 3 years, in federal prison to be immediately followed by 5 years of supervised release. Ortez pled guilty April of this year to possession with intent to distribute over 23 kilos of cocaine. During a September 11th hearing prior to the sentencing, the court heard additional information on how Ortiz attempted to hide the cocaine he was transporting from detection by law enforcement. Officials say that back in November of last year, Ortez was operating a Freightliner semi when he approached the Border Patrol checkpoint. After a canine alerted to his vehicle, the truck was referred for secondary inspection. Ortiz delayed exiting the vehicle and poured a jug of piss inside the cab in an attempt to mask the odor of the drugs. I think the dog has a better nose than that. What do y'all think? He also accused law enforcement of planting evidence. Really? Dude, you watch too many movies. Officers uncovered 22, they planted 22 bundles of cocaine in his truck, weighing approximately 24 kilos, hidden in the blue toolbox under the bed in the cab of the Freightliner. Oh, you just accidentally dumped the whole jug of piss all over the inside of your cab because you were just so anxious to get out of the truck. Boy. Additionally, a search of Ortiz's phone showed evidence of a prior cocaine smuggling activity in September. This happened in November, and they found evidence that he did it prior to that. Ortiz will be allowed to remain out on bond and will voluntarily surrender himself at the Bureau of Prisons facility at a later date. Yeah, do you think he's really going to remain in the country? Okay. Yeah, good luck with that. And in this story, the U.S. DOT announces 2 hours of service pilot programs in a push for more flexibility for drivers. The U.S. Department of Transportation announced 2 new pilot programs intended to reshape current hours of service to provide better quality of life for truck drivers. All right, so on September 15th, the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, announced the following 2 flexible hours of service pilot programs as a part of National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, which was last week. Split Duty Period Pilot Program. All right, listen up. This will allow participating drivers to pause their 14-hour driving window for no less than 30 minutes and no more than 3 hours. So, in other words, your 14-hour on-duty clock will stop. Right now, it's no less than 30 minutes and no more than 2 hours. Now he's bumping it back to 3 hours. The program seeks to collect data and assess whether added flexibility can maintain or improve safety outcomes. All right. So, what I'm thinking that means is that, especially when you're loading and unloading, and it takes longer than 3 hours to get you unloaded or loaded, that you could go in to off-duty or sleeper, and that'll stop your 14-hour clock. That's my assumption. And then 2, the next one is flexible sleeper berth pilot program. This will explore additional sleeper berth split options beyond the current 8 and 2 and 7 and 3 configurations. Okay? FMCSA will test the safety implications of allowing drivers to divide their 10-hour off-duty requirement, listen to this, into 6 and 4, 6 hours on, 4 hours in the bunk, or 5 and 5, like we used to do back when we were on paper logs. Drive 5, off 5, drive 5, off 5, okay? The research will examine how these alternatives affect driver fatigue and overall safety performance in order to determine whether a wider range of rest options could benefit both drivers and the motoring public. It's not so much the motoring public, but there again, if you're off for 4 hours loading or unloading, that counts as your sleeper berth, where you could drive another 6 hours before you have to take another 4-hour break. So that'll help you get your loads delivered on time. I would think that's how we used to do it when, I was running paper logs back before all this Werner started all this ELD business. More than 500 commercial vehicle drivers are expected to participate in this pilot program. Getting back to the article. Protocol development for the 2 pilot programs is slated to begin in early 2026. Duffy said the pilot programs will help the FMCSA study increased flexibility in the current hours of service regulations, which will help determine if providing drivers with greater control over their own schedule will reduce fatigue and improve safety. The pilot programs, because I hated that you had to wait till exactly your 10-hour break was done, and it felt like I was on an egg timer. That up, and if you were a minute too soon, that screwed up your whole 10-hour break, and you had to do it all over again. Or it was like you had to do another 2 or something like that. So, and anybody seeing any messages on Twitch, go ahead and disregard. I don't appreciate anybody spamming me on Twitch. So, knock it off. I'm doing a legit podcast. I don't appreciate being spammed on any of the platforms. I don't do it to you. I don't appreciate you doing it to me. Back to the article. The pilot programs were initially announced in June as a part of the Pro Trucker package. A series of regulatory changes and initiatives designed to improve the lives of American truck drivers in response to direction from the White House to look for ways to improve working conditions for the drivers. So this is part of that implementation. And a truck driver in this story is arrested after Arizona troopers find $187,000 worth of stolen copper in his trailer. Arizona Department of Public Safety recently arrested a truck driver after finding a stolen load of copper in his trailer. September 11, they received a call about a semi carrying a stolen load from Donna Ana County in New Mexico. The Highway Patrol located the semi-truck traveling westbound on I-10 outside of Eloy. Troopers performed a traffic stop on the truck, and a load of stolen copper was discovered in the trailer. The driver was arrested without incident, and police say that they uncovered that the copper is worth about $187,000. And there's the copper inside that was all bundled up. They don't give any more information about exactly what happened, how it was lifted out of New Mexico, but I only report on what is written. And in this article, a bill seeks to protect truck drivers from weaponized litigation in lawsuits over $5 million. Lawmakers recently introduced a bill that would provide trucking companies with protection from lawsuit abuse. They introduced the bill grants federal court jurisdictions over truck crash cases in instances where the lawsuit involves a semi involving in interstate commerce. The amount being sought exceeds $5 million, and at least one defendant and one plaintiff are from different states. This person, Representative Tom Barrett and Ashley Hinson, introduced this bill, detailed the need for the bill in a news release. In recent years, the trucking industry has become increasingly targeted by personal injury attorneys who unfairly capitalize on trucking accidents by abusing our justice system, manipulating lawsuits to be filed and tried in state courts they believe will have more favorable juries and a greater likelihood of larger payouts. In other words, they will they'll ask for a change of venue to a different state that will pay out higher for these accidents. These tactics have been made more difficult for real victims to be heard, contributing to a rise in staged accidents, and directly assault our small businesses. With 96% of U.S. trucking companies operating 10 trucks or fewer, the Fair Trucking Act would ensure that high-stakes cases are heard in federal courts, not cherry-picked state venues, as I mentioned. Quote, truckers keep America moving and deliver for us each and every day, but bad actors are blatantly exploiting them for payouts. Without federal oversight, truckers face unjust litigation that distorts settlements and threatens supply chains. His bill puts safety and fairness first, deterring staged collisions, protecting jobs and small businesses, and ensuring justice is the focus, not profit. He's proud to be a voice for American truckers and look forward to getting the crucial legislation across the finish line. So he says. So we'll see if that bill is going to pass. I will keep y'all posted. Now, this car carrier didn't really... Do you think he tied down this pickup truck good enough? California Highway Patrol doesn't think so. They put him out of service for having the pickup truck dangling off the rear end of his car carrier. This happened in Oceanside, California, back on the 13th of September, and they detailed that load securement issue was encountered. Officers recently stopped a car carrier with a pickup truck hanging dangerously off the back. They said that the truck was ordered out of service until it was deemed safe to return to operation. Properly securing a load isn't optional, it's the law and a matter of safety. One bumper turn could have caused a disaster. Always double check your tie downs before hitting the road. So probably what happened, he got pulled over. They took him to a safe spot. Probably put the ramp down, got the pickup truck or back, got it off, backed it back on, secured it, and then the car carrier was able to go along his merry way. And a trucker is stopped and checked with a group of parents moments before a fatal incident with a 7-year-old. A truck driver stopped to warn a group of parents that he was about to drive through an area in the moments before a fatal incident with a 7-year-old. The accident happened around 8 o'clock in the evening in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. According to the local news, the truck driver was heading east on the Lindale Avenue when he stopped and leaned out of his window to warn a group of parents that was about to drive through the area and to make sure that kids were out of the roadway. The parents then told the driver that they had the kids. The truck driver then turned right onto Cottondale Drive and unknowingly struck a 7-year-old on his bike. The truck driver continued driving and eventually parked near Delcourt Avenue. Quote, "It is believed that due to the truck starting again from a full stop, it may have experienced shaking due to having a fully loaded down trailer. This would have potentially made it difficult to feel any disturbance from the impact with the child," said the police while they were investigating the incident. After the incident, officers were able to locate the truck driver and he returned to the scene. Surveillance video and witness statements both confirmed that the truck driver had stopped to speak with a group of parents before the incident and gave the driver the okay to drive through. Semi-truck was moving between 7 and 12 miles an hour at the time of the accident. Police do not suspect impairment, but did perform a blood draw on the driver at the time of the initial investigation. They did not expect an arrest for the incident. Now, also it depends. This happened around 8 o'clock at night. It was dark outside. It's getting darker as as we're getting into fall and everything. Did the child have a backlight, a red light on his bike? Did he have a front light? What kind of clothing was the child wearing? Was he wearing a dark color clothing? I see a lot of people where I live walking the streets and everything, black t-shirts on, black shorts on, not understanding that we can't see you. We can't see you in the dark. Put a white t-shirt on, a high-vis vest, something that we can see you in the dark. So that is so sad that that child got that injured and it hurt. But there again, it's not always the truck driver's fault. I'm not condoning it at all, but make sure if your kids are going to be out at night that they have bright color clothing on, reflective tennis shoes, anything, those light up tennis shoes, anything. So on to this story. A load of M&M candy is spread across the roadway in a crash between two semis. A load of M&M candy was spread in New Jersey on Monday. This happened the 15th of September after a crash between a parked rig and a moving semi. This is along Interstate 80 near Knowlton Township in New Jersey. And there's also, there's also a Knowlton in Wisconsin, which is my hometown. So it's kind of cool that two townships in the country are both named Knowlton. And the TA is also there in Knowlton, New Jersey. A semi, according to the local news, a tractor trailer was parked on the shoulder of I-80 westbound near the 2.4 mile marker when a second semi crashed into the back of it. The force of the collision ripped open the trailer of the stopped rig, spilling its load of M&M candies across Interstate 80. The trailer of the second rig was also damaged. Both truck drivers refused treatment. A detour was put in place until crews could clear up the candy and the trailer debris. The roadway was clear just after midnight. Do you know how much that load cost? I mean, that's a lot of M&Ms. That's cases of M&Ms. You see that? That's all just sheared the whole side of the trailer off. You talk about a sugar rush and a sugar crash. So from having candy all over the road, now we're going to be smuggling marijuana. Goes from one end of the spectrum to the other. A semi-truck inspection in Mississippi uncovers over 1,000 pounds of pot. This happened on 9/11. Officers stopped a semi on I-20 in Lauderdale County for an inspection. During a physical inspection of the semi, officers found over 1,000 pounds of marijuana hidden in garbage bags inside the load that was inside the trailer. This driver is California-based, Mr. Wang, 36, and was arrested for possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute. You think? As a part of the ongoing investigation, the truck and multiple electronic devices were also seized by law enforcement. So there we go. They climbed up with a stepladder. And gonna search that bad boy. And over 3,000 drivers now have been removed from the road for English language proficiency violations since June. Thousands of commercial vehicle drivers, hence why they're wanting to bring in drivers from Kenya, because now we're having a driver shortage, according to everybody else, according to companies. And that's just because they want cheap labor. There is no driver shortage, people. Thousands of commercial drivers have been ordered off the road for failure to meet the Fed English Language Proficiency ELP requirements, according to the latest federal data. Since late June, there have been a total of 3,020 out-of-service orders for ELP violations issued to semi-truck drivers. The aggregates, Eastern, 386. They were broken down by region. There was 386 off the East Coast, 615 out of the Midwest, 878 out of the South, and 1,141 off the Western United States. This marks a major jump in the number of ELP out-of-service violations recorded over the past month. In mid-August, the number of out-of-service violations was listed as 1,200. So it jumped from 1,200 over 3,000. Back in June, the non-compliance with existing federal regulations requiring ELP for commercial vehicle drivers was returned to an out-of-service violation following an executive order from the White House. Transportation Secretary Duffy put the number of truck drivers taken out of service as approximately 1,500 as at the end of June. So it doubled in 2 months, July, August, 3 months. It doubled. And another thing that they're really hitting it hard because of that bad wreck in Florida. And in this story, officials utilized drones to round up cows that were freed when a cattle hauler crashed. Officials utilized drones to locate and round up cows that were set free they weren't set free, but when a cattle hauler crashed in Virginia. This accident happened on the 16th in Danville, Virginia of September on southbound Route 29 around 10:30 in the morning. Cattle hauler was on its way to Caswell County, North Carolina, when it overturned while taking an exit. Going too fast. 34-year-old truck driver Kevin Hurt was serious. He was seriously hurt. Injured in the crash, and multiple cows were killed. Between 20 and 30 cows broke free from the trailer in the accident. I'm sure they were scared to death and took off from the crash site. Hurt was transported to the hospital, and officials say he will likely face charges of failure to maintain proper control. With the help of cowboys and drones, they rounded up the escaped cattle and loaded them onto another trailer. By 7 o'clock that night, so from 10:30 in the morning all day, they tried to round up these cows. And only 2 or 3 cows were still missing. The roadway was reopened about 8:30 that night. So this was on Route 29. And 2 girls were found locked inside of a trailer of a semi involved in a pileup crash on Interstate 15. Two girls were found locked inside of a semi on Interstate 15. This happened on the 17th of September in Linden, Utah. According to the local news, 28-year-old truck driver Jacob Ortel Scott was traveling north on I-5 when he lost a tire. The tire then bounced over the barrier wall and struck two passenger cars, causing all three vehicles to come to a stop. A second semi-trailer then crashed into the passenger car in the slow traffic and pushed it into several other vehicles. Several minor injuries, one serious injury, and one critically injured person were reported in this crash. The Utah Highway Patrol responded to the scene. During the investigation, one officer reportedly noticed two sets of eyes inside of the refrigerated trailer driven by Scott. Scott looked surprised, the officer said, when he initially questioned him about the people inside of the trailer, then told the trooper there were kids in the trailer. The investigators soon discovered a 12-year-old girl and a 14-year-old girl locked inside the trailer, which was set at 30 degrees. Bedding was also found inside the trailer, which is found to be 29.5 degrees at the time of the investigation. Agents with the Utah State Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and the Department of Child and Family Services found that the girls were being taken to Salt Lake City from Huntington, approximately a 2-hour drive. It's unclear whether the girls were related to Scott, were being kidnapped, trafficked, or otherwise. Scott was arrested on suspicion of third-degree felony aggravated child abuse. I will let you know. There again, I always update you on what goes on with these stories as the news emerges. And FMCSA is to allow the 512 CDL holders to participate in hours of service flexibility pilot programs. I mainly discuss that. So since the show is going over an hour, I want to go ahead and skip over this one. E-scooter driver is arrested for manslaughter after crashing into a semi-truck and killing the passenger. There's two more stories after this one, I believe. Let's see real quickly. Yeah, just two more stories after this one, and it'll be a wrap for this week. A man was arrested on manslaughter charges after crashing into a semi-truck with an e-scooter, resulting in the death of the passenger of the e-scooter. The accident happened around 3 a.m. back August 17th in northeast Portland. But 21-year-old Calkins was not arrested until the 17th of September. According to the local news, Calkins was driving an e-scooter and collided with a passing semi. The collision killed 24-year-old Ortiz Enriquez, who was also riding the back of the scooter, and left Calkins with serious injuries. The driver was initially considered a suspect in the accident, but his full cooperation in the investigation left officers to conclude that his actions are not believed to be the cause of the crash. An indictment against Calkins alleges that he was drunk at the time of the crash, turned himself into police on the 17th, and was charged with second-degree manslaughter, driving while under the influence, and reckless driving of an e-scooter. Imagine that. And here a bill seeks, this is an important story, the bill seeks to ban predatory lease purchase programs for commercial vehicle drivers. Now, one of my most famous episodes of the podcast happened a few years back, where there was a lot of lawsuits with Krishner was doing lease purchase out of California. So, here is some more legislation. A bill recently introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives with the brakes on certain predatory lease purchase agreements in the trucking industry. September 17th, Representative Julie Brownlee introduced the Predatory Truck Leasing Prevention Act. The bill directs the Secretary of Transportation to create regulations to prohibit predatory commercial vehicle lease purchase programs. The bill also requires him or her to establish a process by which drivers may be granted relief from their lease purchase program if the Secretary finds that the terms of the lease purchase agreement violate regulations. The term Predatory Commercial Motor Vehicle Lease Purchase Agreement Program means the framework of motor carrier driver relationship, including lease purchase agreement, the contract for the driver's work for the motor carrier, and the motor carrier's practices in implementing the contracts that are not provided in the contract, including the motor carrier's recruitment practices, operational practices, tax and finance practices, whereby the motor carrier controls the work, compensation, and debts of the driver, and the driver accrues no equity or is forced to give up equity accrued in the contracted truck. The bill has then been referred to the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure for consideration. Trucking groups, including OOIDA, endorsed the bill. OOIDA and truckers across America applaud Brownlee for taking on the predatory lease purchase schemes that have fleeced truck drivers for decades. The scams dangle the promise of ownership but leave drivers broke, trapped in debt, and kicked to the curb with nothing to show for it. These schemes represent the worst in trucking, and the Predatory Truck Leasing Prevention Act would put a stop to this practice once and for all. January 2025, a committee assembled by the FMCSA submitted a final report suggesting truck lease purchase programs cause widespread harm and should not be permitted. That's how I purchased my truck. It took me 4 tries, but that's how I purchased my truck, and after a year, I had to run my tail off. And until you own the title to the truck, the company owns you. Plain and simple. That's like the car mart, like leasing a car. You make payments on a car until you pay it off and you get the title. It's no different than a truck. You're subcontracted to the company, and I paid off my truck doing that in a year. In 10 months, I paid off $52,000, but I did get the title. So they didn't starve me out or anything, the company that I was with. So it worked for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but it did work for me. And lastly, nearly 14,000 Kenworth trucks are recalled for risk of instrument panel display failure. This is one of the reasons why I started the show, to let people know if there's any kind of recalls or missing persons or the smuggling of children and this kind of thing. So it's been quite a while since I've had to report on any type of recalls. Truck maker PACCAR recently recalled thousands of Kenworth trucks for digital instrument display panel issues. On September 2nd, PACCAR issued a recall for certain 2024 through 2026 Kenworth T680s, T880s, and W990 trucks. The total number of trucks affected by the recall is 13,908. Kenworth trucks were recalled for an issue with the instrument display panel, which could fail to show critical information such as warning lights or vehicle speed. A lot of times with a T680, it would just black out on me. And I would have to pull over to the shoulder, and this is in the middle of the night. I'd have to pull over to the shoulder of the road, shut it off, wait a couple of minutes, start it back up, and then it would like reset itself. On the recall trucks, a 15-inch digital display may enter recovery mode, a blue screen, without prior indication and become unresponsive. Quote, because of a loss of speedometer and other functionalities such as warning indicators and gauges, the driver will not know the truck speed or the warnings that appear on the digital display. A loss of information on this display may increase the risk of a crash. Well, of course. As a remedy for the defect, dealers will update the vehicle display software free of charge. So if this happens to you, owners may contact Kenworth's customer service at, write this down, 425-828-5888, reference recall number 25P, capital PACG. That's capital Paul, Apple, Charlie, George. I will have this number and the recall number the phone number and the recall number for Kenworth customer service on the home page or announcement page of my website. There is no schedule for owner notification of the recall yet. So if you're having problems, go ahead and call Kenworth customer service at 1-425-828-5888. Reference recall number 25, P as in Paul, A as in Apple, C as in Charlie, G as in George. I want to also thank you for... Sorry, I got distracted for a second. Joining me again this week, as always. Again, we have lots of news to cover. Thank you for sticking with me for about an hour and 15 minutes. I hope all of you have learned something, have paid attention. Again, please check out the website for any information as far as this recall goes. I will have the number listed and the recall number. I'll put it up in the morning on the website. So if you haven't had a chance to jot it down, if you're driving while you're listening to the show, and I appreciate all my audio listeners as well, I'll definitely have it listed. I will also have it listed in the description of this video on YouTube. We haven't had a chance to and check out my new book. As far as I want to plug my new book, The Power of Perseverance, Achieving Goals Despite the Odds. You could find it on Amazon and Kindle. So you all take care. Y'all take care. Have a great evening. Keep the shiny side up. And thanks so much for listening. And until next week.